Welcome to the think tank and our performance of a play about antimicrobial resistance, where we really quite literally have made a drama out of a crisis. We are here today with colleagues from the university who we have microbiologists, pharmacists, engineers and social scientists, and between us we're going to watch a story unravel, brought to life by actors on the stage, and then the experts are going to then unpick the truth from the fiction in relation to antimicrobial resistance and how bacteria become resistant to antibiotics. So, without further ado, let's introduce our actors and let's see the first scene, which is called Great Expectations.
No, Giles, there's no one here. Well, no one who's going to say anything to the papers, anyway. No, she's not in the best mood, that's for sure. Yeah, I'm getting quite good at dodging random items being lobbed at my head. She's waiting in the car.
Yes, the doctor said he'd meet us here.
More intrigued than anything, I think. No, Giles, honestly, I'm not going to leave here until he's sorted her out. He can give her a throat transplant if necessary. No, Giles, honestly, nothing is going to get in the way of this tour. I can handle a doctor. You've just got to be firm with them. Oh, hello there. Sorry, I was just pacifying my client's manager. You know managers. Dr. Livingston, I presume. Sorry, you must get that a lot. I'm Donna. Sorry, I'm just going to text my client to let her know it's safe to come in.
Yes, I'm Dr. Livingston. This is my practice. I must say it is quite irregular to meet someone here out of hours.
Yes, and we're so grateful.
Well, like I said on the phone, I was on call anyway.
Oh, you poor little thing. You must be exhausted all these hours you doctors have to do.
All part of
Yes, well, we won't take up much more of your time. Once you've cured her, we'll be on our way. And remember, money is no object.
It won't be a question of money. It depends on what's wrong with your client. If perhaps you could give me some background.
Well, when you see who it is, it should become clear. Oh, I think I can hear her now. In here, darling. Dr. Livingston, may I present Geneva?
Oh dear. Hello? What seems to be the problem?
Well, you need to cure her, Doctor. Obviously, she can't go on like this.
Well, I'm not a psychiatrist, but clearly this woman...
She's not just any woman, Doctor.
Oh yeah, you said, Geneva. An unusual name?
But obviously you know who she is.
No.
Oh, Geneva, please, 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 please. Sorry, Doctor, my client is the Geneva. You know, she sings the song from the Cola advert. She did the duet with Justin Bieber, P-A-I-N.
What? Sorry, now you're in pain?
No, I'm fine. That was the name of her song, P-A-I-N.
Oh, I see.
Geneva's in the middle of her world tour, but she's lost her voice. She can't sing a note, and you have to help us, Doctor. Help all of us. There's no way we can cancel the tour. Do you know how many devastated people there would be if it didn't go ahead? How many people's jobs would be in danger? You've got to do something.
Well, perhaps if I could take a look at your client. Could you take a seat for me? Could you just remove the... How long have you had a sore throat for?
Just a few days, but she doesn't seem to be getting any better. Honestly, Doctor, it's a disaster.
Do you mind if I... Yes, your glands are slightly up. I'll just take your temperature. Yes, it's slightly elevated. Do you have discomfort when swallowing? Just open your mouth. It's certainly very angry back there. Oh. You have some sort of infection.
And?
Well, there's not a lot to be done, I'm afraid. The best thing to do is just let it run its course. Should be better in a couple of days.
Sorry, Doctor, surely there's something you can do.
I can recommend taking it easy and plenty of fluids.
Doctor, I don't think I'm impressing on you the urgency of the situation. Geneva is performing at the NEC tonight. If she cannot sing, it'll be a disaster of calamitous proportions.
Take some ibuprofen, that should help with the pain.
We've tried that. What else can you do?
Have you tried gargling with a mouthwash of warm, salty water?
Doctor, we've tried everything. Lozenges, throat spray, oysters.
Oysters?
Doctor, there must be something you can try. Doctors give drugs, don't they?
She has an infection. The best thing to do is let it run its course.
Dr. Livingston, I don't think I'm impressing on you the severe urgency of the situation. There are going to be thousands of very disappointed people tonight if Geneva cannot sing. People who would be very interested to know that the NHS did nothing to help her. We have some very good, very expensive lawyers. I'm sure I needn't go on. What are you going to do to help?
Well, I suppose we could try a course of antibiotics. However, in all likelihood, they're unlikely to make you feel any better or any quicker than if you just let the infection run its course. And there may be unpleasant side effects.
We'll take them.
Look, in this circumstance, they're unlikely to do anything. The cause of a sore throat isn't always obvious and can be a symptom of a viral or bacterial infection.
Well, isn't there some sort of test you can do to find out?
It isn't standard procedure to do a test, and then, of course, you'd have to wait for the results. In all likelihood, your sore throat is viral, and antibiotics have no effect against viruses.
Oh, please, Doctor, it has to be worth a try.
Very well. But it is incredibly important that you finish the course of antibiotics, even if you start to feel better before you finish them.
Yes, yes, absolutely. She's so grateful, Doctor. We both are. Perhaps you'd like a copy of a signed photograph. I'm sure I've got some somewhere.
No, that won't be necessary. Take care.
Toodles. Geneva, I've got your sunglasses.
Okay. So you saw a big discussion between the doctor and Geneva in that scene where they were wrangling over whether something was caused by a virus or caused by a bacterium. So the question I want to ask you to get started, do you know the difference between a virus and a bacteria? Yes or no? So make sure you hold your cards up really high so that we can have a look at them. Okay? Great. Okay. So now, let me invite Dr. Amreen Bashir, who's a biomedical scientist at the university, and she's going to tell us all what the difference is between a virus and a bacteria.
Thank you, Anthony. Sorry, I've got a sore throat as well. Bacteria are present within our environment and within us as well. We've got good bacteria and bad bacteria. And one of the important things are that bacteria are considered as living, and we can actually treat bacterial infections with antibiotics. Viruses, on the other hand, are a lot smaller, and they've got some genetic material in a protein coat. But viruses are non-living, so they need a human host in order to cause disease, and you can't treat viral infections with antibiotics. Okay.
Thank you very much. But the fundamental thing is that viruses are generally regarded as not being living, which is quite intriguing, isn't it, when you consider that they're able to cause infection, but yet they're fundamentally not alive. It's quite an interesting kind of microorganism, really. I want to now invite another colleague, Professor Peter Lambert, who's another microbiologist, just to say how realistic is it that we should expect GPs to know what's going on?
Okay, first, well, it's very difficult because a patient who presents with a sore throat, right, that's pretty obvious, swollen glands, possibly temperature, elevated temperature, there's no clear way that that's going to guide the GP to tell you whether you have a viral infection or a bacterial infection. There are some blood tests, but they take several days, and even then the result isn't really clear. Now, antibiotics don't work against viral infections, so your GP has to make a very, very important decision. And currently, that decision is so important that there's a prize of £10 million has been offered to anyone or any company who can come up with a test that will reliably distinguish between a bacterial and a viral infection. Right? That prize is going to be awarded in the year 2020. So possibly some of any ideas you have, tell us or tell a friend, and perhaps we can do something about it. But it's a really, really tall order. There's about 200 applicants for this prize so far, and so far nobody has got near. Okay, so it's difficult. The GP doesn't know. What the GP does know is that about 90% of cases it will be viral, because that is the experience. That's the dilemma that the GP has.
Thank you. I know that some people have these ideas that if it's a dry cough it must be viral, and if there's sputum it must be bacterial, but the symptoms don't necessarily follow the cause that closely, and sometimes we do need other ways of being able to work it out. So quite a real situation. Your GP does not necessarily know whether it's viral or bacterial. So I want to invite Raki, who's a pharmacist in the university, just to tell us a little bit about how useful are those types of ideas, and is that what people should be doing?
Yes, so as Dr. Livingston said, make simple measures. Self-care is really important. So actually taking ibuprofen or a paracetamol when you've got a sore throat might actually reduce the inflammation and reduce the pain. It's always worth considering things like salt gargling if you have got a sore throat. So self-care is really important. And there's also other support available. So you've got your pharmacist and NHS 111 that deal with out-of-hours problems.
Thank you. So I want to invite another colleague, Dr. Jonathan Cox, who's a microbiologist at the university, to ask, well, why is it not always appropriate that we might want antibiotics?
Thanks, Anthony. So if we have a sore throat, or we have what we consider to be a chest infection, we're coughing and we find it maybe a little bit difficult to breathe, and our nose is streaming and we're feeling generally unwell, and we go to the doctor and we have an expectation that we're going to receive some form of medication, antibiotics, etc. As you've already heard, antibiotics don't work effectively against viruses. And the reason why is viruses actually lack the machinery that makes the antibiotics do their job. So by taking the antibiotics that we've been given unnecessarily, what we can be doing is actually making the situation an awful lot worse for ourselves, taking drugs that we don't need to be taking. Okay? So the real sort of take-home message is antibiotics for bacterial infections, but not for viruses.
Thank you, Jonathan. So let's rejoin Geneva then and see how she's getting on with those antibiotics.
Darling, that was fabulous. You are back, baby. They couldn't get enough of you.
Not too shabby, eh? I've still got it.
Yes, you have. How great were that crowd?
Took a while to warm up, but I soon had them.
They were powerless in your presence, as we all are, darling.
Too kind, Kevin, too kind.
So, for the after party, we've been invited to this new restaurant they're opening. Sounds a bit boring, though, but we could just go for a bit. Then Elton and David want us to pop by, so we could make a detour. I presume you'll be wanting to get back to London tonight, so I booked us your normal table at Wakiki's. No more gigs for 3 whole days, until we have to up sticks and go to Glasgow. Oh, we're going to get merry tonight, baby. I can't wait!
Remember, I did have to cancel 2 gigs, though, dear. I can't be seen getting too wild.
Look, your health is the most important thing, and you're better now.
Darling, you are marvellous.
Thank you, darling.
Mwah, mwah. Kevin.
Donald.
Please, you two, don't start. This is my night.
Yes, it is. And all the more reason for us to go and get legless. Now come on over here and let me get you looking fierce.
Geneva, I'm sure I don't need to remind you, but you are still on those antibiotics, so no drinking for you tonight, I'm afraid.
Oh, don't listen to the warden. Of course you can drink. When I had my infection, I was out every night.
Well, I am feeling an awful lot better now, so I can stop taking them. A few glasses of bubbles couldn't possibly hurt. Careful with my hair, please, Kevin.
Oh, sorry, love. Yes, you deserve to paint the town red. The week you've had.
Yes, it has been vile. Donna, I think I'll go out after all.
The doctor did say to finish all the tablets.
But she's feeling so much better now. There's no point in finishing them all.
Good point. I think Kevin's nan's oysters were more helpful than that, Doctor.
Well, I think we terrified the poor man. And I'm sure that's something that I've heard before, that you need to finish all your antibiotics. It's so that we don't become immune to them or some such. So that next time your sore throat comes back, it won't come back worse or something.
Well, next time I shall be on the first plane to LA to see a proper doctor.
You tell her.
Oh, do be quiet, Kevin.
Get her.
Down, boy.
Look, I'm telling you, there's absolutely no problem mixing antibiotics and alcohol. Now, Donald, go and tell the driver to bring the car round and tell him it's going to be a late one.
Yes, Donna. I really don't think you can deny me a few drinks. Are you coming?
No.
Well, I can't be seen stumbling out of a club, though, so better be safe than sorry and chuck the rest of those pills, Donna. I'm feeling so much better now. We can keep them for the next time your infection flares up, Kevin. Save you going to the doctor with an embarrassing problem.
The doctor did say to finish all the tablets. I could ring him to double check.
Waste of time. Thank you, Donna. What would I do without you here looking after me?
Have a little fun occasionally.
Stop it. Now, where are you taking me?
Well, I tried.
Okay, let's talk about the use and misuse of antibiotics. Let's start with the use first of all. So what I want you to do is to show me your card, your green side, if you've ever had antibiotics. So yes, you have, or no, you haven't. And by the looks of it, there's only a very, very few people that haven't. Tends to be our younger guests who may be not quite sure yet, but in general, most people have benefited from antibiotics. They're a real sort of frontline way of dealing with infectious disease. One final question now is that regardless of whether you did or didn't follow the instructions, do you know the consequences of not following the instructions? What could happen if we don't finish the course, we don't take them at the right time on an empty stomach or with food, or keeping out of sunlight even, which sounds ridiculous but is an instruction on some antibiotics, okay? So if you know what the significance of not following those instructions could be, show me the green side. Yes, you do. Or if you don't know what the consequence could be, then show me the red side that no, you don't. One of the reasons that people stop taking antibiotics is because they start to feel better. And people don't generally like taking tablets if they don't think that they're actually doing them any good. So I want to invite Jonathan back up to talk about it from a microbiological point of view. What is the significance of not finishing the antibiotics?
Thanks, Anthony. So I use the example, if you've got, say, for example, you've got a bacterial throat infection, okay? So you've got swelling at the back of your throat that's causing you pain. You start taking your course of antibiotics, and in the first few days of taking them, there's a rapid reduction of the amount of bacteria at the back there. So that the thing that's causing the inflammation, the bacteria that are there, it's reducing that pain, that swelling in your throat, so you begin to feel an awful lot better. But there are some bacteria that will remain at that site of infection, and we call those persisters, okay? And those persisters can recolonize, can grow back and cause that infection to come back. We call that a secondary infection. And should you then go back to the GP and request some more antibiotics, there's a distinct chance that the antibiotics that you could be given will no longer be functional against those bacteria because they've already been exposed to sublethal, as we call it, doses of that first antibiotic. Okay, so that's why it's incredibly important that we take the course right the way through to the end, even if we're starting to feel better, because that way we make sure that we kill all of the bacteria that are causing the infection.
Thank you, John. So does anybody have any questions about what you've seen so far? How a virus is made? Well, that's good. Does anybody want to pick that up? I can take that if you want to. Go on then, Pete. Yeah.
I'll have a shot, yeah. Viruses can't grow and divide on their own. They need to invade your cells, and they get the machinery in your cells to reassemble bits of virus. They come and join together, they burst out and they go and invade other cells. So they can't live on their own. They're totally dependent upon invading your cells. Okay? It's a great question. But The question is, would they die if they didn't find a human? That's a wonderful question. Some of them are very, very resilient, and if they get left on a door handle or a work surface, they won't die at all. They'll just wait until someone picks them up on their hand and perhaps swallows them. That's what happens on these cruise ships, you know, when you get these norovirus infections. They spread like that. So yes, some of them will wait around a long time just waiting for a human. But your first question was great. Where do they come from? We don't know. We really don't know. Perhaps they were the first things that were ever appeared on the earth. We don't know.
I think with viruses that they don't create fossils, so we don't know. We have fossilized structures of bacteria, which we know were here about, what, 3.5 billion years ago, something like that. But because viruses don't create fossils, we don't have that similar sort of idea of how long they were here, but they're probably likely to have been around the same time, I suspect. Sorry, Anne. Yeah. Yes, they can. There's some viruses are particularly good at killing their host. It's quite an interesting question because a virus almost needs a host in order to survive. So it's not a good strategy to kill your host, really, because once your host is dead, then you're kind of stuck there, really. The best viruses are those that set up an infection within a host and then get spread either silently or, you know, without killing their host and perpetuate. But there are some, like Ebola. You must have heard of Ebola virus, maybe. That's a particularly nasty virus. But then you've got like cold sores and things like that people get spread on from one person to the other through contact. You know, that one virus is very successful at killing its host. One virus is very good at living in long time with its host. Okay. Let's check back in on Geneva and let's see what happens when the drugs don't work.
Oh, Doctor, how is she? You must be able to tell me something. I'm going out of my mind here.
I'll need a little bit more information than that. How's who?
She. Geneva, of course.
Ah, yes, our resident celebrity. Are you family?
Well, practically. Of course, I wasn't with her when she got ill, but I came as soon as I heard she was in hospital. My poor sweet Geneva, if anything happens to her...
Well, you're here now, and I'm sure she'll appreciate that if she wakes up.
Oh, say it isn't so.
I'm afraid it's family only, though.
Kevin?
You.
Oh, please don't, Kevin. I can't bear a scene.
What were you doing? You're supposed to look after her!
How on earth is this my fault? She has an infection. And it's not like you can talk. We haven't heard from you in years.
Well, I meant to call. I've just been so busy.
Busy with bigger celebs, you mean?
You can't blame me for going where the money is. People stopped buying her records.
I didn't leave her. I stayed with her through thick and thin.
Only because you couldn't get any more clients.
She's more than just my client, Kevin.
So tell me what happened.
She just got ill when we were away in Asia. We blamed some dodgy chicken at first, but then she started getting headaches and a fever and vomiting and diarrhea and she was just becoming so weak. I brought her here a few days ago, but she doesn't seem to be responding to anything they've been trying. They think it might be salmonella poisoning.
Like Edwina Curry had?
Exactly.
But food poisoning isn't bad. Surely they can just put her on some antibiotics or something.
Well, they have put her on an antibiotic, but she doesn't seem to be responding. I don't really understand, but it's got something to do with resistance.
Oh no. Oh no. It's my fault. Remember that time with the sore throat? And I told her to stop taking antibiotics. You said this would happen, Donna. It's my fault.
I've got a few minutes now, if you have any questions.
Yes. Doctor, is this my fault?
I find that highly unlikely.
But years ago, Geneva had a sore throat, and I told her to stop taking tablets. And now Donna says she's resistant to them or something. I've killed her!
Calm down. People don't become resistant to antibiotics. The bacteria become resistant to them. Her current situation has got nothing to do with the antibiotics she took years ago.
Oh, thank goodness. You witch! Let me think I killed her!
She isn't dead, Kevin. Just listen to the doctor.
But we're facing a worldwide crisis. Bacteria are becoming resistant to existing medications. And yes, that's in part due to people not finishing their full courses of antibiotics and taking them when there's no need to.
So Geneva's caused the crisis?
No, of course not. But we all have a collective responsibility to use antibiotics appropriately. We have to make sure that we are only taking antibiotics when we need them and that we're taking them correctly.
So antibiotics are bad?
No, that's not what I'm saying. We all have to be responsible regarding the use of antibiotics. We're all part of the problem, so we all need to be part of the solution. There are other issues too. Resistant bacteria are also present in animals and in our food chain, and we're just not able to develop enough new medicines to keep up with the resistant diseases.
Yeah, but Geneva's rich. She can pay for new drugs. She's still rich, isn't she?
Yes, she's still rich.
I'm afraid that's not the issue here.
So, what do we do now?
We've tried a number of different antibiotic treatments, but at the moment, none of them are working on Geneva. There aren't many options left. We just have to wait and see what happens. I'll be around if you need anything.
Donna, what happens now?
So there is a rather hard-hitting truth to antimicrobial resistances and the consequences for being unable to treat infection. But I very quickly want to introduce Peter again to just really talk through the reality of what we've just seen.
Folks, just to make sure you get the right message here, it's not that she caused her own infection there, but she's part of the problem. We're all part of the problem. If we all don't use antibiotics properly, we're going to encourage resistance to develop. Those resistant organisms could infect anyone at any time, and that's the prospect that we're facing now, and that's why we're running this course, to try and raise this awareness. And I think because you're all here, you all know about this problem anyway, but that's what we're talking about.
A common misconception about the use of antibiotics is that if we overuse them, that we become resistant to antibiotics, as in the person themselves. If you think that, or thought that humans become resistant to antibiotics, then show me your green side. Yes, you thought that. If you don't think that's the case, then show me the red side, that you don't think that's the case. So we're asking really whether you think humans can become resistant to antibiotics. I wonder if I could again invite Amreen to come up and tell us, well, what's really happening when bacteria become resistant to antibiotics?
Thank you. So when you take a course of antibiotics, what they do is they trigger a cascade of reactions inside the bacteria that lead to the death of the bacteria, essentially. When you decide not to finish your course, or when you're feeling better, say, well, I'll leave those 2 days, what you're actually doing is exposing those bacteria to sublethal doses of the antibiotic. Now, what that can do is it can cause changes within the shape or the conformation of the bacteria where the antibiotic would normally join onto. So the next time you use that antibiotic, it won't work against that bacteria. So essentially, what doesn't kill that bacteria actually makes it stronger.
Thank you. So you saw there really that this isn't just a problem in the UK, this is really a global problem. But just to get an idea of how big a problem it could potentially be, I just want to invite Jonathan back to tell us a little bit about the scale of the global issue.
Thank you. So yes, antibiotic resistance is a global problem, and it's something that we all need to be aware of and all need to take some responsibility for, and think about how we're going to actually prevent the sort of continuation of this problem in the future. Right now, about 700,000 people die each year from antibiotic resistance. Okay? Their deaths are attributed to antibiotic resistance, and that number, 700,000, is estimated to rise to 10 million people by 2050. Okay? So now is the moment to think about what we're doing with these drugs and to use them responsibly and to protect these very valuable assets that we have so that they continue to be useful for us in the future.
Thank you. So one solution we could have is let's just make some more antibiotics. As one antibiotic becomes available and then microorganisms become resistant to that, we then create another one, and then they become resistant to that, and then we create another one, and so on and so forth. So one solution could be that. So what I want you to do, if you think you know, is put your hand up and then tell me how long do you think it takes to develop a new antibiotic. So these are the big companies, the big pharmaceutical companies, for them to have an idea, to develop it, and deliver it. How long do you think that takes? The man at the back there? About 100 years. That's a good guess. What do you think? 24 hours. You couldn't get two more extremes. It's going to be somewhere in between there, isn't it? Somewhere. Any other? What do you think, young man? About 15 years. Okay, then. Well, let me introduce Jonathan back again to tell us about. Jonathan used to work in the drug development industry, and he can tell us a little bit about how long it takes to create new drugs.
15 years is a very good estimate. Yeah, decades in reality is how long it takes. Tens of years, okay, to discover new effective medicines. But okay, so we've discovered our medicine, and then we patent it, which means nobody else can do anything with it. We as a company, we've got this medicine, and we can then use it and try and make some money out of it. So how long can I actually hold the intellectual property, we call it? How long is that drug my property? Well, when we patent it, we have 20 years on a drug patent, and then after that 20-year period, anybody can start producing it, okay? But it can often take about 8 years to get the drug through all of the testing and the pre-clinical development, we call it, all of the testing that allows us to realise that it is safe to use that in people. So that leaves 12 years left, okay? And the average cost of producing a new medicine is about $2.6 billion. $2.6 billion. So we have 12 years, pharmaceutical company has 12 years to try and recover that $2.6 billion, so they have money to invest in the discovery of more medicines for the future. So it's quite a tight turnaround time, actually, 12 years to try and recoup their costs.
Thank you. And of course, it's not just scientists that are looking at this issue. We also have engineers who are trying to look at it from a slightly different perspective. In some cases, they might be helping scientists produce antibiotics more efficiently, or design new ways of modifying existing antibiotics so that they become useful again when maybe they've gotten to a high level of resistance. Or, if you see on your bag that you've got with you, there are companies like Biomaster who are creating these surface treatments so that the inside of that bag is actually antimicrobial with an additive they create which is based around silver technology. And that is one strategy of breaking the chain of infection before we become unwell. Because you could argue, if we don't get unwell, we don't need antibiotics. And so this kind of idea is used in smart surfaces, in door handles and in plastics and other kind of consumer durable products like you've got, is another way that engineers are working with scientists to look for novel ways of breaking the chain of infection. So, any questions at all?
How does taking alcohol affect your recovery or the way the antibiotics work?
That's a brilliant question. So the question is, how does alcohol affect antibiotics? I think that has to be one for our pharmacy colleague here to tell us a little bit about drug interactions with alcohol.
So actually most antibiotics you can take alcohol with, but there are some, for example metronidazole, which actually cause a horrible reaction in your body and make you quite sick. So it doesn't actually affect the antibiotic working, but it actually makes you feel very poorly. So what we would suggest is, as the pharmacist, as you go to the pharmacy and get your medicines, they will tell you certain instructions, and it will always be on the label. So where it says avoid alcohol, it really is important to avoid alcohol. Okay.
Thank you. Great question, thanks. Any other questions? Oh, sorry, yes, sir.
Any single dose antibiotics?
That's a good question. Yeah, Peter.
Yes, there are some classic cases, and one's azithromycin, which you may have heard of. You can go to your pharmacy and you can ask for to be tested for a particular disease called by a special kind of bacteria called chlamydia. And if the test shows you're positive, you can get a single dose, 1 gram of azithromycin. I'll look at my pharmacy colleague to make sure I've got it right. And just with 1 dose, you take the dose and you're cured. Now, there are good and bad aspects of that, but yes, there are.
Just to help us out, we'll ask the experts to give us one top tip each to take home with us. So maybe if I can come to Amreen first. What's your top tip for everyone, Amreen?
So my top tip is your bacterial infections will be treated with the antibiotics, but your viral infections won't be. And if you are given a course of antibiotics, please finish them, because what doesn't kill them will make them stronger.
Thank you. Peter.
Okay, folks, my top tip would be related to Amreen's, is that work with your doctor. You're a team. And if your doctor says, no, I don't think you need an antibiotic, then there's a good reason for that, and go along with it. Carefully monitor yourself, and if you're not getting better, you're not feeling better, then go straight back and see your GP. They won't mind, but work as a team.
Thank you. Raki?
I think my top tip would be make sure you take your antibiotics as prescribed and utilise your pharmacist to help you self-care.
Jonathan?
My top tip is maintain good personal hygiene. There's prevention is an awful lot better than cure. So actually, by washing your hands properly after you've been to the bathroom or before you eat, can help reduce the spread of bacteria and infectious disease.
Thank you very much. So all that now remains is for us to maybe welcome our actors back on stage, and we can give them a round of applause, please, and also our experts for their valuable contribution this afternoon. Thank you very much.